question from Facebook. Let's listen.
My name is Carla Hernandez. I'm from the University of Texas at Austin, and my question is directed to all the candidates. If the Bible clearly states that we need to embrace those in need and not fear, how can we justify not accepting refugees?
Governor Christie, you say there should be a pause in allowing new refugees to come in to the United States, including orphans under the age of 5. What do you say to Carla?
What I say to Carla is that the first job of the President of the United States is to protect your safety and your security and the security and safety of your family. And this debate stops with me in the discussions with the FBI director. Now, listen, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I know Jim Comey. We've worked together. He was the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan when I was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey. And when Jim Comey gets up before Congress and says, we cannot effectively vet these people, for me as president, that's the end of the conversation. We have to put America's security first. The American people, we on this stage need to open our ears. We need to open our ears. The American people are not whispering to us, they're screaming to us. And they're screaming to us that it's our job to actually make this government work. It's so dysfunctional under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. It's so ineffective. It's so ineffectual that the American people say we don't trust them to do anything anymore. So I'm not going to let Syrian refugees, any Syrian refugees in this country. And it was widows and orphans, by the way. And we now know from watching the San Bernardino attack that women can commit heinous, heinous acts against humanity just the same as men can do it. And so I don't back away from that position for a minute. When the FBI director tells me that he can vet those people, then we'll consider it, and not a moment before, because your safety and security is what's most important to me.
Governor Kasich.
Well, you know, obviously, as President of the United States, we've got to keep the people safe. That's first and foremost. But as Governor of Ohio, I have an obligation to keep the 11.5 million people in Ohio safe. And we've been very effective with our Joint Terrorism Task Force being able to make busts. In fact, we just made one 3-4 weeks ago against a person who was favorable to ISIS living in Akron. But let me tell you what's interesting about the administration. We had Central American minors that were placed in Ohio, and we never knew a thing about it. We didn't know where they were. And in fact, we know now that some of them, there is a case going on where some of them may have been human trafficked. So when the administration tells me we have a great vetting process, the proof's in the pudding. They sent these minors to us. Our schools were disrupted. We didn't know where they were, and bad things happened to them. And now they tell me that we ought to be able to admit these Syrian refugees. So, Wolf, look, people have accused me at times of having too big of a heart. You know, and that's okay. But I have to also say I must keep the people of my state safe. So we take a pause.
Thank you, Governor. There's much more coming up. We are only just beginning. Coming up, what other global hotspots await the next president of the United States?
Both Republican and Democrat administrations have been completely ineffective in dealing with him. So we must continue to isolate him. We will need China as part of that strategy. China is a rising adversary. So one of the things we have to do if we want China's support is to push back on China. They, too, recognize one thing: strength and their own economic interest. I have done business in China for 25 years, so I know that in order to get China to cooperate with us, we must first actually retaliate against their cyber attacks so they know we're serious. We have to push back on their desire to control the trade route through the South China Sea, through which flows $5 trillion worth of goods and services every year. We cannot let them control the disputed islands, and we must work with the Australians, the South Koreans, the Japanese, and the Filipinos to contain China. And then we must ask for their support and their help with North Korea, because believe it or not, China is as concerned about Kim Jong-un as we are.
Dr. Carson, what would you do about Kim Jong-un?
Well, I definitely believe that he's unstable, and I do, in fact, believe that China has a lot more influence with him than we do. But we also recognize that North Korea is in severe financial straits, and they have decided to use their resources to build their military rather than to feed their people and to take care of the various humanitarian responsibilities that they have. We can capitalize upon that. You know, we should use our economic power in lots of different ways. I think we can use that in order to keep Putin contained, because he's a one-horse show. Energy. And we have an abundance of energy, but we have archaic energy exportation rules. We need to get rid of those, allow ourselves to really make Europe dependent on us and other parts of the world dependent on us for energy, put him back in his little box where he belongs. And, you know, we need to be doing lots of other things with the resources that we have. So economic power works just as well as military power, perhaps even better. And speaking of that, our military needs to be upgraded. You know, you look at things like our Ohio-class submarines, they're 25 years old. Our Minuteman III missiles, they are 34 years old. Our B-52 bombers, 50 years old. You know, if we don't get the military right, nothing else matters.
Thank you, Dr. Carson. Dana and Hugh, you have some questions as well.
Governor Christie, you've said if China launches a cyber attack against the U.S. on your watch, quote, they're going to see cyber warfare like they have never seen before. What exactly would that response look like?
Well, what it would look like is we have one of the great advantages of America being the open society that we are, is we're not hiding things from the American people. But China every day is conducting business in a way that it hides things from their people. So if they want to come in and attack all the personnel records in the federal government, which they've done, and which they now have my Social Security number and my fingerprints, as well as maybe some other folks who are on this stage, the fact is they need to be fought back on. And what we need to do is go at the things that they're most sensitive and most embarrassing to them, that they're hiding, get that information and then put it out in public. Let the Chinese people start to digest how corrupt the Chinese government is, how they steal from the Chinese people, and how they're enriching oligarchs all throughout China. They need to understand that. And we need to take those type of steps. This president has seen personnel records of people who have sacrificed for the American people and for the federal government stolen by the Chinese, and he's done nothing in return. This is why I said at the beginning that this administration, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, through their foreign policy, have betrayed the American people, because the weakness they've displayed has led to Putin's incursions in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe, and has led to significant problems in the Middle East as well, and the death and murder of lots of folks.
Governor Bush, what you just heard from Governor Christie, are you concerned that that could really escalate with China, that they would retaliate and, for example, as the NSA has said, attack the U.S. and maybe its power grid, which the Chinese have the capability to do?
I completely agree with Chris, and this administration has been so lax. Think about it. Hillary Clinton's using a private server where classified information goes by. This is a serious administration. The president receives an inspector general's report that the Office of Personnel Management could be hacked into. They had antiquated firewalls. 23 million files are in the hands of the Chinese, allegedly, including, by the way, members of the press, it turns out, last week. Maybe that's the only part that's good news, so that you guys can get a feel for what it's like now to see this type of attack. This is something we have to have the best defensive capabilities. We need to coordinate all of our efforts with the private sector. We need to give them liability relief so that we can do that. And offensively, we need to have capabilities second to none. We need to create a situation where they know that there will be adverse impacts if they continue to do what they're doing. They'll respect that. They'll respect the United States that is serious about protecting our infrastructure. If we don't do it, we'll continue to see exactly what's happening, not just from the Chinese, by the way, the Russians and rogue actors, including ISIS. This is a serious part of the 21st century security challenge that we face.